Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you are doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today we are going to be taking a quick look at Dice Throne Adventures. And right off the bat, I just have to say, I love how colorful this game is. It is just absolutely kind of delightful to look at and play. And I guess to kind of skip to the end here, I really enjoyed this game a lot. Although it is a hard one for me to recommend, and hopefully we can get to that as we talk about the game. But I do want to back up all the way to the beginning and talk a little bit about what this game is. So, this game, more than anything, reminds me of the video game series called Puzzle Quest. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with Puzzle Quest was or is a series of games that took a very standard kind of match three style gameplay. So, match three, very popular kind of mobile games where kind of Tetris like puzzle games where you are matching three gems to destroy gems and progress through the puzzle. So, Puzzle Quest took these match three, these very, very easy kind of bog standard kind of match three puzzle games and wrapped those within the confines of a RPG system. And in these games, you were an adventurer and you would have an overland map and you would move your little character from node to node on these maps. And each node you would have a little interaction with an NPC or some kind of like little story element. And then usually you would fight some kind of creature or another person, and you would do your fighting playing a match three game where you were trying to crush certain gems, trying to match three colors of different gems in order to do different kinds of attacks, in order to build up meters to where you could unleash big magical attacks, or you could power up your weapons or power up your armor. And it was pretty cool because while the game itself didn't actually really feel like an RPG, it didn't feel like an adventure game. The trappings of the RPG, the trappings of the adventure game, the costume of the adventure game gave me, as a player who wasn't really into the match three style games, it gave me a reason to enjoy those. It gave me a reason to play a series of those one after another. It gave me a reason to come back to the game because I was building up a character and I was, having these little adventures. Well, Dice Throne Adventures is a lot like that because at its core, Dice Throne, the game, is a Yahtzee style game. And Dice Throne, the competitive game, the normal game, has you taking these very elaborate characters. In this case, I have the monk here. Of course, I'm playing a monk. Nothing new there. But you have these characters who have all of these different powers. You have innate powers on your character board, and then you can earn more powers while you are playing the game. You're going to spend, like, basically kind of spending experience points, upgrading your powers, upgrading your defense, getting new abilities. And your characters also have a deck of cards, which will allow you to change your dice rolls. So imagine in Yahtzee, if you had chances to to augment your luck and to modify your dice rolls. But in the normal game of Dice Throne, you are taking one character against another in games of elaborate kind of thematic Yahtzee, where you are trying to score certain straights in order to do certain powers. You are trying to score, match different dice faces, have full houses or five of a kind, four of a kind, and different things like that in order to do different attacks and in order to execute different powers to defeat your opponent. It's a head-to-head game, very competitive. It seems pretty fun. I have actually never played the head-to-head game just because I'm not into that style of game, but I've always been somewhat interested in the game because of the way the characters look and the way that the characters play. And I like games where you have decks of cards that you can use for certain powers, and games where you roll lots of dice, and games where you can manipulate dice, and games that have a lot of a pressure luck kind of element. And so Dice Throne has that. So at its core, the regular Dice Throne is kind of like the match three game. And then along comes Dice Throne Adventures, and it puts that in this kind of in this disguise of a dungeon crawl, of an overland crawl, of an adventure game in which you are taking your character and you can play as one character. This game plays very well solo with just a lone wolf mode. And you are taking your character and you are going to be starting in a little maze here or a little overland or a dungeon. And you are going to be moving from node to node, and each time you land on a node, which is one of these cards here, these tiles, the node is going to have you do a little something like roll a die to see what kind of a bonus you might get or what kind of penalty. Usually something good or something bad will happen to you on these tiles. And then once you encounter the tile, once you explore the tile, usually you're going to be spawning an enemy. And once an enemy gets spawned, then you are going to be playing a little competitive game of thematic Yahtzee, trying to match symbols for your heroes, trying to kill the enemies. While the enemy is doing the same thing, you're trying to match certain symbols on the enemy card so they can fight you. And then you're going back and forth, having a little Yahtzee battle. And then you continue on your path as you try to explore the various realms and go through the various dungeon crawls. And then once you defeat one of the last powerful minions in a dungeon crawl, then you go to a boss battle and you repeat both of those things 4 times, and that is a campaign, and then that game is over. Along the way, while you are adventuring, you are also going to be gaining loot by picking up these little treasure tokens or also by defeating minions. And the loot system in this game is very, very cool. So when you pick up a treasure, depending on the rarity of the treasure, you have green, blue, purple, orange, standard kind of MMO rarity there. But when you pick up one of those treasure chests, then you're going to roll a d20 and you're going to find what you rolled on the loot table, and then you are going to get that treasure. So if you roll low, you might not get something very great, but if you roll high, then you might get a very cool piece of loot depending on the rarity. But the thing is while you are adventuring, while you are out doing your questing, you cannot identify that loot. And so you have to have that loot face down underneath your character card. But in between adventures, you can go to this store here where you can pay gold that you've earned to identify your treasures. And then once those are identified, you can take a look at them and then you can add them to your character's deck. And so there's this really cool element where in between the adventures, you are adding cards to your deck. Your deck of cards is getting more powerful because you will have better gear. You will have better ways to manipulate your dice while you are playing the game. And you can use these, you can keep these in your deck. Your deck grows stronger. But at the start of each scenario, whether it is this portal crawl that they call this dungeon crawl style, mode, or the dungeon or the boss battle mode, you're going to be clearing your board. So at the start of each scenario, your character starts kind of at square one, but the quote unquote legacy, the persistent abilities in the game are these cards, and your deck is going to be getting stronger. So you will have a better chance of improving your character quicker as your deck gets more powerful in between each scenario. And I really do enjoy that. I don't mind the fact that each time I start a scenario, my character kind of starts in his weakened state, at his most basic state, and it gives me a chance to to level up my character pretty quickly. But then I also really enjoy how I am getting these loot cards while playing, and then in between games I can do just a little bit of deck building. It's not too much deck building because you can have 50 cards in your deck, so you pretty much can just add every card you get. But these cards are going to make your character a lot more powerful while you are playing the various scenarios. This is another one I got, this prophetic orb, which allows me to have different card draws. So a really, really cool system, and it is a lot of fun. The game comes with a lot of stuff. The adventure game, you get a ton of tiles with which you are going to be creating your dungeons, and the tiles come in 4 different difficulties. You have these greens, which are mostly these greens are going to be spawning easy enemies. And then you have your level 2s here, your blues. These are going to be spawning your blue enemies, which are a little more powerful. And your purple enemies, which are, of course, even a little more powerful here. I do like a lot of the art on the cards. The tiles, like I'm saying, you don't really feel like you are playing an adventure game. It does feel like just that kind of puzzle quest where it's giving you an excuse to keep playing a pretty basic puzzle game over and over again by offering us that people like us that carrot on the stick, that promise of new loot, that promise of a little discovery along the way. And then we have our little level 4 cards, and these are going to be the level 4 minions, and you have to defeat a level 4 minion before you can defeat a boss. And then as you play through the campaign, you are going to be able to unlock new things that are going to be added to the various stacks of tiles and cards that come with the game. The game also comes with a lot of loot and quite a few minions. If I can get this tray out here. So this tray here that comes with the game, you have all of your minions. So you have all of your green minions, all kinds of different minions here, from Chaos Elves, Satyrs, Goblin Enchanters, Fairies, Shadow Cats, Oregon Warriors, a Schizo Oni. Very nice art, very modern, kind of clean style. But I think it really does fit the kind of mood of this game. It does have that kind of video gamey feel, almost like an MMO style look, but I do enjoy the look quite a bit. But you get a whole bunch of green enemies, a whole bunch of blue enemies, purple enemies, just a few of the level 4 minions, and then you get all of your scenario cards. So like I said at the beginning, a campaign of Dice Throne Adventures is 8 scenarios, and it's going to alternate between a portal crawl, a dungeon crawl, and a boss. And so each time you play, you're going to draw one portal crawl card at random, and that is going to show you how you're going to set up your dungeon, where the various treasures are, where the various healing potions are, and where these markers are here, because you have to collect all 3 of those in order to open up the portal to get to the boss. It's going to tell you your hero setup, depending on how many heroes you're playing, what your starting health is, how many starting healing potions you have, what your starting gold is, and then it's going to tell you what you get if you win the mission, or what you get if you lose in the mission. And then these King Hands tokens, these are special tokens that the enemies use to make themselves stronger. So it's going to tell you what those do. And then once you pass one of these portal crawls, then you go to your second scenario, which is going to be your first boss battle. In this case, you're going to be fighting against the Barbarian. And then once you defeat the Barbarian, you will go on to scenario number 3, which is again going to be one of your portal crawls. But these are going to be a little bit stronger. So you choose one of these, or a little bit more difficult, I should say. And then you fight your second boss, and that is going to be the Fallen Gunslinger. And you repeat that process until you finally meet the Mad King, which is the final boss of the game. So it's a nice little campaign system. You could probably get through the campaign system in probably maybe like 2 sessions, maybe 3 sessions. So it's not a super long campaign. There are also large cards, which you will be adding to your various decks as you unlock them. And then you have a whole bunch of loot here. So you have green loot, blue, common, rare, epic, and legendary, and all kinds of different styles of loot here. Some one-off cards, some equipment that you can equip to your character, different ways of manipulating your dice, different ways of modifying your attacks and your defense, and all kinds of stuff like that. So cool loot. And then you also get all of your boss cards, which I'm going to clean up the table right now, and then we're going to take a look at what the bosses have to offer. Okay, so the bosses in Dice Throne Adventure are basically full heroes. So for those of you familiar with the game, when you buy your hero, you are going to get your little hero leaflet, your information card, and that is going to tell you what your hero, how they use the various bonuses, the various status effects, the status effects that are unique to them. It's going to give you a listing of the dice that they use and what the dice faces mean. And it's going to give you just a little bit about the different rules. In this case, you're going to get some AI rules and some frequently asked questions. Very nice, a really handy sheet that comes with each character. And each boss in Dice Throne Adventures also comes with that. And then you also get their large fold out that has all of their various kind of starting powers on it. And so you're going to get your fold out for your Fallen Barbarian, Fallen Gunslinger, your Fallen Monk, and finally the Mad King, which is the end boss of the game. And as you fold these out, you will see the cards printed on here that are going to tell you your basic powers. And just like the heroes in this game, the bosses and the minions, they fight with these dice and they roll, and you're looking for certain Yahtzee combinations, straights, full houses, and that kind of thing in order to trigger certain powers. So when you get to this part of the game, once you get through your dungeon crawl, then you're going to fight a boss, and it's going to be kind of this one-on-one or a one versus many style game where you are fighting against a boss. And each boss also comes with their own deck of cards. And these cards will have various things. They will have upgrade cards, which the bosses can spend their experience, their combat points, in order to make their attacks stronger. And then each boss also comes with a number of action cards that they can use during the duel to help them augment and help them modify their dice and their attacks and all of that. You can also, in this game, when you buy this game, it also comes with the option of just playing as the bosses. You could play boss versus boss, just like a normal game of Dice Throne in the competitive mode. You could also just play a game where one person plays a boss against other players who are just playing their regular Dice Throne heroes. Pretty cool system. And I've got to say, the product is really nice. Everything is super well organized. You've got this incredible chit tray, one of the best chit trays I've ever seen in a game. It makes this kind of thing really easy. It makes setting up the game super fast. This is a game that you can have set up in a matter of minutes. It is a very easy game to learn as well. It is a game that is approaching that kind of a magical spot that I really enjoy these days, and that is that the realm of effortless fun. And I do get that from this game, even though I still think that the game is hard to recommend. And let me talk a little bit about why. The game is very expensive, and Dice Throne Adventures is just an expansion to Dice Throne. So if you don't own any Heroes for Dice Throne, if you don't have any of the one versus one character packs or the whole season boxes that have all of the characters packed in, and you buy Dice Throne Adventures, you actually can't play the game. It is not a standalone game. It is just an expansion to Dice Throne. It's a pretty interesting thing. I kind of like that. I like the idea of this expansion coming out that kind of, fundamentally changes a large part of the game that you might already own. However, it's very expensive. I've seen it go for over $100. I finally found a copy at a price I was comfortable with at Half Price Books, but I just got really lucky. But even so, if you were to find it at a good price and you also needed to buy some characters, you're still looking at probably over 100, 120, maybe around $150 for the game in order to play it. And that's a lot of money for this game, I think. Everything's nice. All the cards are really good quality. Everything it comes with is high quality. The game itself is high quality. I think the rule book is really good. It took hardly any time to learn. Um, you do need to learn regular Dice Throne and then add the adventure rules on top, but they're very simple, very logical. If you've played these kinds of games before, you're going to pick it up really fast. And so that's why it is kind of this effortlessly fun game. But there is a large barrier of entry, and that barrier of entry is the price. That barrier of entry is the fact that Dice Throne Adventures is not a standalone game; it is an expansion, and you need a lot of stuff. Because of the game trays, the big box is completely full. There's no room for anything else. So if you have heroes, you're going to have to take along heroes. It becomes a big game. But I'm not quite sure if it offers a big experience. It still feels like a pretty small experience because you don't get that real crunchy adventure game feel or that really in-depth kind of dungeon crawl feel. It has that puzzle quest feel where you are still just playing these kind of basic games of competitive Yahtzee, but it disguises that fact with some bling, with some art, with a tiny little bit of story and a little bit of character progression. So it's a hard game to recommend. If you already own Dice Throne Heroes and you like the game and you would like to play it solo or co-op, then it's a no-brainer. Yes, get Dice Throne Adventures. I think you will have a lot of fun. If you don't own anything, then it becomes a little harder to recommend. If you don't own anything for Dice Throne and you're interested in Dice Throne Adventures, you're looking at a pretty hefty investment. I would say, it just depends. If you want something light that's really fun that you could probably play with like a very family weight style game that you could get through a campaign in a couple of sessions, and you probably will want to play the campaign a couple times to experience it with different characters because the characters are where the real fun is. It's really fun upgrading your character and making them more powerful and getting more loot and more things to add to their deck. So that's really fun. And since the campaign is short, you will probably want to play it again. But you just got to keep in mind it is that price, it's the size, it's a big game. With the heroes, it's going to take up more space. So it's a hard game to fully recommend, even though I really enjoy it. But I hope you guys enjoyed taking this look at again, just these dials, everything. I mean, it comes with a ton of dice. So you are getting your money's worth. You are getting value. Everything is really well made. It's a lot to ask for a new player to come into this game, head on and dive deep into it. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed taking this look at Dice Throne Adventures, and we will talk to you later. Bye bye.